Great, thank you, Kenny, very much. Good evening, everyone. I just want to start off by thanking you all for being here this evening to learn more about our upcoming temporary shelter site at 69th and Proctor. As Kenny said, please feel free to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to submit questions and comments throughout the event this evening. And if you're calling in, you are welcome to email your questions or comments to shelters@cityoftacoma.org in order to get those into the queue. As Kenny said, he'll be doing a moderated kind of Q&A session at the end. So he'll be reading out your questions and comments from that Q&A button, and we will be responding to those as we get them. Anything we're not able to get to this evening, we will be compiling all of those and responding to them and posting it to our website at www.cityoftacoma.org/authorized encampments. We're also recording this meeting this evening, and we'll be placing that recording on that website as well. So thank you again all for joining us. I'm going to ask Mayor Woodards if she wouldn't mind offering some introductory remarks for folks on the meeting this evening. Mayor?
Great, thank you, Allison, and thank you for starting us off. Good evening, neighbors. I'm Victoria Woodards, and I happen to have the proud honor of serving as your mayor. And not only do I serve as your mayor, I happen to live in this neighborhood. So I am delighted to be a part of tonight's conversation and to be listening in and answering all of the questions and concerns that you might raise. I want to thank you for being here and taking the time to learn more and share your thoughts and concerns with us so that we can address them. And while we recognize that there are some limits to gathering virtually, we're getting ready to open back up where we can all be together in person. I can't wait. But what we have found in doing these virtual meetings is that a lot more people can engage and take part in these meetings. And so we're really grateful again for all of you who've shown up tonight. The topic of tonight's conversation, providing safe and secure shelter for our unhoused neighbors, is an incredibly important conversation to me, but to this entire community. And it's especially important right now as recent economic impacts, including the pandemic, have called on us to come together to look for ways to support the most vulnerable members of our community. What we have seen through the pandemic is that it really has exacerbated what we already knew to exist. And that is that there are certain members of our community who suffer more than others. And it's our responsibility as a city to take care of everyone who chooses to be a part of our community. Expanding shelter beds is one way that the city of Tacoma is looking at how we can take care of our unsheltered residents. I know that there are lots of questions and concerns about this particular site and how it will operate and what you can expect as a neighbor to this site. But what I want to be clear about is that we want both our housed and unhoused neighbors to feel safe, and that is our ultimate goal. We have seen successful operations of these TEMS sites around our city, first starting in Hilltop, then on the east side, and then on the north end. And what I can tell you is that even from the onset of concerns from neighbors when these sites were going in, by the time the sites were up and running, neighborhoods embraced these TEMS sites. If we just immediately look at the site over off of 6th, and now the street's gonna evade me, but over by Wilson High School. If we look at that site and the fact that it's right next to a senior center, and we had lots of those seniors come testify when we were talking about putting the site in, of being afraid and not wanting the site to be there. Once the site went in, that senior housing, or that senior living facility actually became partners with the site, came over and provided food and toys, and just became a sponsor of the site. And those are the kind of partnerships that we need. While the city can cite a TEMS site, what is so important is the fact that the community embraces its neighbors, and that we really all become a part of this incredible community. And frankly, as a South Tacoma resident and as someone who lives less than 5 or 6 blocks away from where this TEMS site will be, I am looking forward to the south end of Tacoma being able to show the compassion that they have for everyone who is a part of our community. I'll also tell you that as a neighbor, as a person who will be someone who lives close to this TEMS site, I have full confidence, and I don't have full confidence blindly. I have full confidence because I've seen the work that our staff does, and I've seen how this partnership with Lehigh can work. And tonight, I'm really excited for you to hear from Ronnie Brown, who's with us tonight, a true testament of what can happen when we offer those who need our help the most just an opportunity to get back on their feet. And that's what we're trying to do here. And with your support, we can make this happen. So I trust our staff. I know that they'll do a really good job. I know my community, and I know that when our questions are answered, and we feel comfortable and safe, that we will rally around this site like other communities have. And we will make our neighbors who were once unhoused, who will be housed, feel safe and welcome in our community. So thank you all for being here tonight. I encourage you, ask all the questions that you want to ask. No question is a dumb question. I think in order for you to feel comfortable, we have to be able to answer every single one of your questions. I also encourage you that if you know anyone who has lived near any of the prior TEMS sites or the current TEMS sites, that you reach out to them and you talk to them, because you will hear a much different story than some of the fears that may be coming up inside of you of something unknown. So I really encourage you to ask your questions and talk to other people in our city to see how it's worked out in their neighborhood, because you will be pleasantly surprised. So again, welcome tonight. Thank you to Lehigh for being our partner in this. I especially want to thank Allison and Kristen and Linda and and Matthew, who are part of our NCS team, and then the whole Lehigh team who is with us tonight. So thank you everybody for being here, and I look forward to hearing your questions and the great discussion that we'll have this evening. And now I'll turn it back over to Allison Griffith. Thank you. The hardest working woman in Tacoma right there.
Well, thank you, Mayor, very much. For all of you, my name's Allison Griffith, and I do serve as the Assistant Director with Neighborhood and Community Services. And before we begin, I do want to let you know who I have here with me this evening. I am joined by Neighborhood and Community Services staff Kristen Ely and Matthew Jorgensen, as well as Director Linda Stewart. I also have staff from the Low Income Housing Institute, Josh Castle, Ty Dilworth, Erica Merritt, John Brown, Bradford Gerber, and a former micro-shelter resident, Ronnie Brown. Each of these individuals play an integral role in the success of these sites and in sharing information with you this evening. And of course, the mayor is here as well. In this evening's meeting, we will share an overview of the shelter project, including why we are establishing this shelter, how this particular site was selected, who will be served at the site, the project timeline, and how to get involved. We will also hear from our partner and site operator, Low Income Housing Institute, about how the site will operate and the outcomes they've experienced at other micro-shelter locations in Tacoma. After the presentation, we will have an opportunity to hear questions and comments from attendees. This presentation is being recorded and will be posted to the city's webpage for those who were unable to attend tonight's conversation. In addition, all questions will be added to our ongoing FAQ about the project and published for reference. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, please feel free to add questions using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom window or by emailing shelters@cityoftacoma.org. So let's get, Matthew, if you could back up one slide for me, please. Let's get started with a bit more background on our temporary shelter efforts and how we selected this location for a new site. Since May of 2017, City of Tacoma has been operating under a declaration of public health emergency to address the health and safety concerns caused by growing encampments. In 2020, we also entered into an additional state of emergency related to COVID-19. COVID-19 has created new challenges to accessing shelter as our existing shelter operators had to limit capacity to accommodate safety protocols, including physical distancing requirements. Both of these declarations allow the city the ability to more rapidly adapt policy and allocate funding to provide shelter and resources to people living in encampments in Tacoma. Encampments pose safety and health concerns for those living in them and around them, including issues related to human waste, garbage, exposure to communicable disease, exposure to violence, and other human health concerns. Since declaring the emergency on homelessness, the city has established a variety of shelters and resources to support the basic needs of those currently living outdoors. This includes temporary and emergency shelter sites like the one we'll talk about tonight, hygiene stations, a mitigation site, and inclement weather shelters. Even with all the additional supports implemented by the city and our community partners, we still have a community shortage of shelter and basic services for those living outdoors. Next slide, please, Matthew. Based on our need for additional shelter locations, City Council directed staff to evaluate all properties owned or controlled by the city that may be able to be utilized for additional sheltering space. We evaluated more than 1,100 properties owned or controlled by the city of Tacoma or Tacoma Public Utilities, and we narrowed those sites to sites that had a decent topography of outdoor usable space and were at least 7,500 square feet. We then narrowed down from there to look at adjacency for waterways, which is not something we wanted to eliminate, those ones that were too close to waterways, ease of access to service and transportation, and community impact. From that list, we narrowed to 10 potential options to evaluate for operational use. That list was shared with council, who recommended we conduct further feasibility and assessment on 2 locations, South 36th and Madison and South 69th and Proctor Street. Over several weeks, we conducted further assessment, which included discussions with impacted neighbors, as well as evaluations on property size, potential use, and cost to establish services. Due to significant operational constraints for South 36th and Madison, staff recommended South 69th and Proctor to pursue a shelter and was supported by council in this choice. Matthew, can you move to the next slide? Thank you. This slide shows us an aerial view of the site location. The areas within the red boundary are city controlled and available for this use. Within these 2 red boundaries, there are 94,000 square feet of space, and there are no current operational uses. This site is within a 5-minute walk to transit. The area for the proposed shelter is represented in the yellow and white area. Based on our communications with Habitat for Humanity, who owns the vacant property to the north of these 2 kind of red outline areas, and will soon be underway constructing new affordable housing in that location, the southern section of land was preferable for us to develop. So we have proceeded with site design accounting for that feedback. So that yellow and white box is where we'll be located. This site is within residential neighborhood and close proximity to community assets, schools, and businesses. As we've established other shelter locations in residential areas in the North End, East Side, and Hilltop neighborhoods, we've learned that proximity to residential areas can be a concern for community members who fear that shelter may cause an increase in crime. Fortunately, we've learned from our other shelter locations that these fears have not become reality. Looking at 911 calls surrounding our 6th and Orchard site, we've actually seen a decrease in calls when comparing the 5 months before and after the shelter opened. At East 60th and McKinley, overall calls for service have increased moderately, with the highest increases being for medical aid, hang-up calls, and welfare checks. I'm now going to turn the presentation over to Matthew and ask him to walk us through the site design. Matthew?
The availability of space at South 69th and Proctor is going to allow our community to maintain an existing shelter asset, which is the Tacoma Emergency Micro-Shelter, or TEMS site. It is currently located at East 60th and McKinley. The existing TEMS site is located on property owned by Tacoma Housing Authority, and based on our agreement with them, we need to remove the shelters from the site by the end of this year so that they can develop that land for additional housing. As a result, we'll be moving the existing TEMS program and operations to this new location and expanding the site capacity. The site at South 69th and Proctor will operate just as the current site at East 60th and McKinley does. It will be fully fenced, include 24-hour site management, and have controlled entry. There will be up to 70 micro-shelter units, each of which accommodates 1 resident or family. Each micro-shelter is 8 by 12 feet, heated, insulated, and furnished with electricity and smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. Residents share common areas for restroom, showers, laundry, a kitchen, and trash and recycle services. At our currently operating locations, TEMS sites have had minimal impact on the surrounding neighborhood. Residents have access to the space 24/7, and any vacancies are coordinated with service providers so that there is not an influx of visitors to the site looking for services or waiting for a space. This slide shows our most recent draft of the site layout. The purple lines around the sides show where the fencing will be placed. There is a main entrance along South 69th Street that is wide enough for garbage services and emergency vehicles, and a main foot entry. There are a few parking spots along South 69th as well. The yellow areas are the individual shelter units, and the blue areas represent offices and meeting spaces. Sorry. Based on the number of residents, we'll have multiple community kitchen tents, community tents, hygiene stations, laundry, and offices. All of the community assets will be ADA accessible, and ADA shelter units are designated on the far left. I am now going to pass the mic to John Brown with Low Income Housing Institute to tell you more about the services their organization provides and how the site will operate.
Okay. How's everybody doing? And as you can see here, the Low Income Housing Institute as a nonprofit, we have over 2,400 units of affordable housing. We also do have a housing presence with affordable housing in Puyallup and also in the Millen area. Well, the site will be a little bit different since it's going to be a little bit bigger. We're going to be adding additional organizers. There'll be 2 organizers per shift. And then we also will have the SPM, and then also with the case management. And then also we'll have cameras there, which will assist in then having the organizers doing the patrol to make sure that the village is being good neighbors, and also that making sure that all the villagers are also following the code of conduct. We also, with the case management duties, is to make sure that we're getting the residents on a plan to move them into permanent housing, because that is our main goal, is to make sure that when we have the residents that they get everything they need from their social security card, to setting them up a bank account, and to make sure to put them on a plan of success, because all the villagers that we do get, the main goal is to move them into permanent housing, and that when they get to permanent housing, that they can sustain that permanent housing. And also with the positive outcome that we've had at both of the locations that we have in Tacoma, being able to move out residents into permanent housing, especially during this COVID time, we've also been able to move villagers out. And that's only a testament to the staff that we have within Lehigh, and then also with the case managers being able to help all of the residents and put them on a path to, again, for them to get into permanent housing. So with that, I'm actually going to hand it over to Ronnie Brown to share his story of how the tiny house village really was able to change his life. So I will hand it over to Ronnie Brown.
Thank you, John. And as he mentioned, it changed my life tremendously. I came to the village 2019, the very first village that they opened up on the hilltop in Tacoma. And I had suffered a very hard case of PTSD. I lived in my vehicle for 2 years. I'm also a vet. And when I came to the village, I never felt so much love in my life, from the staff, from the project manager to case managers. They just wrapped their arms around me, got me back on my feet. I got the help I needed. Eventually, one of the case managers put together a beautiful resume for me that just knocked the socks off this company that hired me. So today I'm a peer coach for Boulder Care. We're a telemedicine company, and it's been such a blessing. My life just turned around just rather swiftly. It was just within a year, I was able to get this beautiful apartment, which I have an office in. And the good news is I'm about to be married this Saturday. Found a beautiful lady. She's been an amazing person in my life. So we both actually get back to the community now. We actually, every 2 weeks, like clockwork, we're bringing the goods to all the villages that are here in Pierce County. And we're looking forward to be supportive of the new one that's going to open up. We're really excited about that, because that's what we need. We just need everybody to come together. So I'm just honored to be here to share that with you. If there's anything that we could do to help, we're going to be there. So thank you, guys.
No, thank you, Ronnie. And I'll be handing it over back to Matthew.
Actually, John, you can speak on this slide if you want.
Oh yeah, oh definitely. So these are pictures of the tiny house villages that we have. We will be serving individuals that are couples or 18 and older. We will be doing the background checks as well as curfews, We do allow pets. Again, the code of conduct, and what the code of conduct is a document that's done during the intake. It's the do's and don'ts of the village, so that way the village can run functionally, and then also that we can be good neighbors within the community. No drugs, no alcohol. They have to meet with case management, and they just have to be willing to follow the code of conduct, and also be willing to engage in the case management. And that's one of the big backbone to the tiny house villages being successful, is they have to be in case management. And with having that case management to put together a plan with finances, putting together a resume, looking for jobs to get them into permanent housing. And then yeah, that's everything we have here. And then the two pictures here, one is one of the units with the bed, the welcome basket that they get that has hygiene in there, so that they have everything they need to get started. We will also have washers and dryers on site. We will also be having a meal provided by Union Gospel Mission down in Olympia. They will come up and deliver food. And I will hand it over to Josh.
So I'll just actually, sorry, if you could go to the slide before, I want to mention a few more things about this, and then I'm actually going to hand it to Erica to share about kind of what the case managers do, the case management team. So a couple things on this. So the code of conduct, that's a big one. We have a code of conduct. It has multiple rules in it that we enforce, and really people who come to live at the site need to agree to abide by it. And as John was mentioning, they need to agree to work with the case manager, and then that's the goal of the program, is to help them get from homelessness to housing. It's a stepping stone from homelessness to housing. So they work with the case manager. The case manager will help them with eliminating all those housing barriers, and we'll just get them on a path to housing. When it comes to security, they do perimeter checks around the area to make sure that things are secure. We have, we are checking with all the neighbors and the community groups. We have 24/7 staff. We're going to have at least 2 staff on at all times. And if somebody wants to, ask a question, if they want to bring a meal, if they have a concern, we want to hear about those. So basically, anybody who's interested in doing that, you can come right to the village in person, or you can call, or you can email. There's multiple ways to contact us, but there will be a 24/7 number to contact at all times. And now I wanted to hand it over to Erica Merritt, who can tell you more about what the case managers do and how they do their work. Thank you, Erica.
Hi, okay, so I've been at Lehigh for about a little over a year, and I've worn a few hats. I started as a case manager, then went to a special projects manager, and now I am a special project manager, which means I support other villages. And I said all that to say that I've seen different aspects of the village and how it's run. And you heard a lot about case management, and I wanted to speak to that because it's not just housing and jobs. I wish it was that easy. It's wraparound services. So a lot of people aren't ready for a job, and they aren't ready for housing. They just have to start, having a life where they're not worrying about, not waking up, worrying about, food, worrying about shelter, right? So a lot of it is just creating a different norm for them, reconnecting them with their family, getting them involved in support groups, chemical dependency if needed, right? So those are all the things that we're doing to reconnect them with the community as well. I know at my village, we partner with the surrounding neighborhood, and we do litter patrol, right? So we were giving back to the community, also letting the community know that we're invested and, and we're in here together. Lots of churches come and donate things. And so it's really a family-oriented village. You are a guest with an expectation that you are there for a period of time, and then we expect that you move forward. But while you're there, you're just learning essential life skills as well as a job and the employment and the housing. Those are the ultimate goals. But wanted to say that, yes, this is a stepping stone, but not a stumbling block. People don't just get stuck here. That is not our expectation, is that you continue to grow. And when you leave here, you leave in a better position than you were. And that's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica.
Mm-hmm.
So we can go on to the community engagement. Great. So a couple things. This is kind of a big part of how we operate our villages. We take community engagement and engagement with the neighbors and the neighboring businesses very seriously. So for all the villages, we have a community advisory committee. So we're now working on our, I think we're going to have a 14th one pretty soon. And with the CACs, these are neighborhood stakeholders. They're basically established through our contract with the city, and that's with any city that we partner with. You know, these started actually, frankly, a while ago in Seattle, and then other cities saw how it worked, and then they realized this should really be a part of all the villages going forward, because what this is it's a way for the neighbors to check in on how the village is going, and allow some transparency into the village. These are public meetings. Anybody is welcome to attend. You don't actually have to be a CAC member in order to attend these meetings. They're welcome to all. And basically they're monthly. They're about an hour and a half. Erica and John knows all about them because we've had all sorts of meetings with them. And they come together, they hear from the Lehigh staff about the operations, the outcomes for the residents, how the residents are doing, if there are any concerns we should walk through, and then like what donations are needed, what kind of community support is needed. A lot of these really rely on heavy community support, just people coming by, sharing their smiles, bringing meals, being supportive in bringing a service to the site. We've had yoga, we've had yoga classes before, of course, COVID, but hopefully we'll go back to that, and other things that have been offered. So being part of the CAC is a big part of how we engage with communities. And really, we just want to, we want to talk through things. So like I said, if there's a concern, we want to talk through it, because the reality is if there's something going on in the neighborhood, that also affects the residents of the tiny house village. We're all neighbors, we're all in this together. So we want to work together on it. And we want to be an asset to the communities that we go to. We want to actually make the community safer. A lot of times what we hear is that when you take an empty space and you activate it, and then you add staff that are overseeing security and people that really care about the neighborhood, which the residents of our villages do, you actually increase the safety of the neighborhood, and you get the neighborhood more involved and more engaged. So that's what's been our experience. These villages are very peaceful. We have SPD attend all the CAC meetings, or police attend the CAC meetings for each of the ones that we have. Tacoma police for our two CACs in Tacoma, and they always report back that things are going well. We'll go through if they notice something, did the villagers, the village staff notice the same thing happening, and we talk about it and work through it. But it's not it's not anything that happens from the villagers themselves. So we all, like I said, we're all kind of working on this together. The monthly meetings for the CAC will begin in September, so pretty soon, at least after the summer, hopefully not too soon. We want the summer to last a while. And then you can go and look at the minutes or apply to join online at that link. Or you can also just directly email me, and my email is josh.castle@lehigh.org, josh.castle@lihi.org. And I'm the community engagement director. I don't know if I said that. But that's so that's how we do it. And then anybody who wants to donate or volunteer, we'd be very interested in hearing from you. We really bring community folks together to build these villages and paint them and do construction. We have two warehouses where we're building tiny houses. So if anyone wants to check out those warehouses and be involved, and of course we also build them right on site, and then we paint them and set them up. So an email address to remember if you're interested in doing that is tinyhouses@lehigh.org. tinyhouses@lehigh.org. And that's what I wanted to share. And just any questions you have, feel free to send them my way. Thank you. I'm going to hand this one to John.
Okay. So here you can see what our success rate has been at 6th and Orchard, with 17 that moved into permanent housing, and at East and 60th has been 24. The total client served has been 91, and then at East 60th has been 109, and our total has been 41 with 200 people served.
So in this, this has, I should just mention that, there's a lot of other programs there, a lot of other shelter programs out there. that, you know, with every person, you treat them like an individual and you help them with eliminating their barriers to housing. And it's very difficult to find, first of all, it's difficult to find any affordable housing. Lehigh provides a lot of it, but there's just still not enough. And it's also, a lot of people come with, you know, they might have an eviction on the record. You know, they might have something else going on and they need income in order to get housing a lot of times. So these are, you know, and they may need an ID. They may have lost it in a police sweep or it was stolen. So if you have no way of proving who you are, if you have no documentation, it's impossible to apply for housing or work. So the case managers are heroic. They get down there, you know, sit down with the resident. They go through all these things. They get them back their documentation, their ID. They figure out what's on there's something on the record that they can go back and try to eliminate. They do that, and they get them to a good psychological place. Just being out, you know, away from homelessness and off the streets and away from trauma and violence and being, you know, not being able to plan your day, constantly being at risk of theft, and being inside of a tiny house where there's security, there's safety, and you have autonomy and privacy just being in the house itself. These are insulated. They have electricity. You can, you know, secure your possessions, lock the door. A lot of times it just takes somebody to take a deep breath and just be in that space and recover, really recover for a month or two, and just work with a case manager on that process. And then, like, let's now that you're in a better place, now that you're stable, that you're feeling better, you know, you got your things secure, you got your documentation, let's get you into housing. So they work on that. But it is hard to get people into housing, and so that is actually a very high number, especially compared to other forms of shelter. That's a much higher number than basic shelters. So we're really proud of that, and we're really proud of our case managers for all the work they do.
Yeah, I would also like to add too, with dealing with COVID as well. You know, that was been a trying thing for, you know, a lot of shelters, but you know, us being able to still strive on and still have individuals that moved out into permanent housing during these times is also a testament, again, like Josh said, to the type of case managers that we have that have been on the ground, still helping, still assisting, and still, you know, moving individuals into permanent housing. So I just want to add that as well.
Great, thank you, John and Josh and Ronnie, for sharing your story. Appreciate that. Want to move back into a few other logistics on the site and just kind of go over a timeline of what you can expect from here on out. So this slide does represent the entire project timeline. On May 11th, we received support from council to pursue a TEMS-like model at this location. And this month, Lehigh has also agreed to operate the new expanded site. As touched on earlier, we are going to move units from East 60th and McKinley, which is in keeping with our commitment to that community to end the shelter by the end of this year over there. And so we will be moving those units to this location. We are expecting at the end of this month, beginning of next month, to begin construction on site, which includes leveling the site and preparing it for the new facilities. And by early August, we anticipate actually having a number of the facilities in place. So if COVID restrictions allow, we are going to host a community open house on site and give neighbors an opportunity to see the space before it's occupied, come in and do a tour and get a feel of what it's going to feel like. In August, we'll also begin transitioning residents and the units from East 60th and McKinley, and we expect the site to be fully open by mid-September. In September, Josh touched on the Community Advisory Committee, and we will host our first Community Advisory Committee meeting that month, and those will occur monthly going forward. Finally, we anticipate removing this site by the end of 2023. I also do want to highlight, and I'll touch on in a minute, contact information that throughout this project, staff are available to support your needs and address any concerns that may arise. Next slide, please. Here we have some key resources that will be available throughout the duration of this project. Teams are available to conduct outreach to those experiencing homelessness. The TEMS site will have a 24/7 phone number, so when that's established, we will get that information out to the community. And that's for contact on immediate issues. Also, city staff is available to help solve issues as needed, and we'll put that contact information in the chat. It's also here for you. You can always email shelters@cityoftacoma.org or call 253-591-5000 and let our customer support staff know you need to speak with someone about the micro shelter location. Next slide, please. Finally, we want to share how to get involved. So again, the existing micro shelters have been a success because of the generous support of the surrounding community. So if you're interested in volunteering or donating to the site, here's some information on how to do that. Also, if you're interested in joining that community advisory committee, I strongly recommend doing that, and the information for how to apply is there. And then you can also join the listserv to receive email updates by visiting cityoftacoma.org/authorized encampments. The most important part of our conversation this evening is, of course, your questions and comments. So I'm going to turn it over to Kenny, who will walk us through what has been accumulating there in the Q&A section. Kenny?
Thanks, Allison. Usually I direct all my questions to you, but the first comment is for Ronnie, if that's all right. Ronnie, someone says congratulations to you on your pending marriage. So just wanted to throw out a nice one.
Thank you for that. And like I said, that would have never happened had I not been getting support from the city and Lehigh, and everybody came together to make it happen and made me a better person today. So I'm just grateful for that, but thank you.
Ronnie, I've gotten to hear you speak a few times because of these meetings, and I don't know, do you have a fan club? I'm like, I want to be part of it. Really appreciate you. Thank you for being here. All right, we're done being corny. No more corny, all right? All right.
Well, as long as we don't start rapping, we're okay.
Oh, we can bring the mayor back up. We can bring her back up. All right. Thank
you. Don't get me started.
Thanks, Mayor. All right, Allison, let's get to business. All right, first question. Why use this property that has such a high population of kids instead of somewhere more secluded, not a residential area?
Yeah, Kenny. So the city of Tacoma is a developed city, and so any neighborhood we go into has community assets around it. And honestly, there isn't a location really that doesn't have an impact to a neighborhood. Also, these are residents of our community and need access to the same services that you need access to as a housed resident. So that is why we do go into locations and communities. And I do just want to emphasize for folks, all of our shelter locations have been located nearby schools, community centers, parks, things like that. So this is not a unique situation for us in siting shelter.
Thanks, Allison. And just so folks know, we had a bit of a security issue with our Zoom event, so we had to turn off anonymous questions. Just so you know, I won't share your names with anyone in our audience. If you want to be ensured that you can ask a question anonymously, I won't share it with anybody. But yeah, sorry I had to turn that off. It was just one thing we could do to protect the event. All right, next question. Allison, this person asks, if we are a company with job openings, who can we connect with on the case management team to promote them?
Yeah, Kenny, I'm going to ask Josh to answer that one. Josh?
Yeah, so I can connect them with our amazing case managers and our case management manager. So we have Ty Dilworth, and Ty Campbell, and then Alexa Price. These are three people. Alexa actually manages the case managers, but if you want to talk with the folks that are actually doing the work at the TEMS site, working with all the residents there, the two names I mentioned before that are the two. We have two Ties that work at the case manager at the village. So we'll put we'll put the email in the chat.
Great, thank you so much.
That's a wonderful offer. We are grateful for that. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question. Allison, this person asks, in addition to the tiny house options, will people be allowed to camp on the site too, if tiny houses are filled or if they prefer their own shelter?
Kenny, no, folks will not be able to camp on this location. And in fact, if there is an encampment issue that arises, Lehigh staff is very skilled and adept at contacting our homeless outreach team to get resources out to those folks, offer of shelter, and get them into a more stable location.
Thank you. And Ty, I'm putting your email in the chat so it goes to everybody. There we go. All right, next question. Actually, I already know this one goes to Josh, so I'll just pass it right to you. What happens if people don't comply with the code of conduct? Are they removed from the site and again, homeless, but now in our neighborhood?
You know, I'm going to answer that briefly, and then I'm going to hand it to John. So I'll just tell you that when it comes to enforcement of the code of conduct, we take that very seriously. You know, like I said, we sit down and walk through the code of conduct with everyone, so they understand right from the start that a condition of participating in this enhanced shelter program is you have to comply with the code of conduct. If you're in violation of the code of conduct, there's a couple things that happen. So if you're in repeated violation of the code of conduct, something that isn't super serious, but you're repeatedly violating it, at some point you're going to run out of luck. And the thing is that they're on what you call an exit prevention plan. We don't want to exit them, but we need to get them on the right path. We need to get them in compliance with the code of conduct. If they do something, this doesn't happen often, but if they do something like serious violation, like we don't have any tolerance when it comes to violence, they may need to leave the site right away. We still want to work with them. We still want to be in contact with them to help them out. But if they end up being a safety risk to the village, that's when they need to go. Like I said, that's not a common occurrence at all. It's just not something that happens very often. And then the other thing I want to mention is there might be a situation where somebody, there might be another shelter or another situation. You might connect them with family. There might be a better place that meets their needs. So maybe in the process, if they're not following the code of conduct for whatever challenge or struggle they're going through, maybe they need to be transitioned somewhere else, and we help them through that process. John, did you want to mention anything else on that?
No, that was good. Just to echo the part that when someone is being exited, we do make sure that they do work with the case management to find them somewhere else that could be more fitting. And again, back to the case management, in no way, shape, or form do we want to just put people back into the street. You know, we want to make sure that, a tiny house village isn't a fit for everyone, but we make sure to connect them to other places that could be better for them in their situation at that moment in time.
Thank you both so much. And just to remind folks, if you do have a question or a comment, you can submit them in writing by clicking that Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window. We're going to get to as many as we can in about 30-40 minutes. And I am going to take some comments. So here's our next comment. There's two comments, one for the city and one for Lehigh. So a request for Josh to answer requests and questions from the South Tacoma Neighborhood Council meeting. Please provide data, stats of successes and failures, crime reports, request a partner, and input from 3-sector Tacoma Police CLOs. Is that Community Liaison Officer, I believe? And then a request for the city to please send replies to the April South Tacoma Neighborhood Council meeting. If the person who wrote those two comments gives me permission, I'll share your contact information with staff so they can get that to you promptly.
So can I just mention something really quick on this?
Yeah.
If the person who asked that, if they could please email me, and the best thing to do is just bullet out what your questions are, and I promise to get an answer back as quickly as I can.
Great.
Really, just simply lay it out, bullet it out, and I will make sure to get back to you.
Great, Josh. Will you put your name or contact in the chat one more time and make sure it's going to all panelists and attendees so they can see it? All right. Thank you.
I'm just going to jump into it with a reminder that the FAQs will be posted to the city's website, which includes all of the questions we've previously received from the neighborhood council as well as the business district. So that will get posted to cityoftacoma.org/authorized encampments.
All right. Thank you so much. Next question. is from a resident who asks, Allison, how are the tiny houses heated? Oh, and your volume or your sound seems to not be working, Allison.
Sorry. Can you hear me now, Kenny?
Yep.
I'm gonna ask John or Josh to answer that one for you.
Yes. So all of the tiny house villages come with a heater inside, and it heats the whole area.
Thank you. Thank you.
All the villages, just to be clear, they all have electricity. So you can turn on the light, turn on the heat, charge your phone, and they all have at least 2 windows. So they're pretty well ventilated. And yeah, there's a lot of we've actually surveyed residents, and they said that it's very when it gets colder out, they actually get pretty well heated. So the electricity is working pretty well in them.
All right, and here's a comment for both the city and Lehigh. This person says, I am asking to have input from our community liaison officer, Lieutenant Stark, on this site. Our CLOs need to be just as involved. So thank you for that comment. All right, next question. Where will occupants go after December 2023? What will that site be used for after?
Just as we have with other locations, we will look to see whether we need to establish additional shelter as we get to the period of time when we're looking at standing this location down. The city's also engaged in several other projects to establish affordable housing and permanent supportive housing projects. So ostensibly, we can transition folks into those locations as well. So we have quite a bit of time between now and then. So there will be a change to the landscape in terms of kind of where folks need to go or what available resources there are. So, and at this point in time, Kenny, I can't at this point in time speak to future use of that site.
All right. This next person gave permission to share their name. So this is a question from Chelsea McElroy. Chelsea's wondering, in which way were the surrounding schools with high student walking population notified about this location being in the pre-existing walking path of many of the students, including Manitou, Gray, and Mount Tahoma?
Kenny, we do mailers to the surrounding location when we notify folks about shelter. And then we also do reach out to the principals kind of as we get going so that we can have conversations with them about any concerns they might have and help answer those questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Is Lehigh involved with the stability site on Puyallup Ave?
That site is operated by Catholic Community Services.
Thank you. All right, next question. Will there be pet waste bags given to the residents that they can travel with when going to a local park, or will Metro Parks at Manitou Park set up a dog waste bag dispensary?
We can certainly reach out to parks about setting something up at Manitou, but dog waste bags are something that we have provided at our East 60th and McKinley location and our 62 Orchard location. So yeah, that will be something we will make sure is available for residents.
All right, and Allison, your connection is still a bit choppy. I don't know if anything might be blocking your speakers, or play around with it. Oh, now we
have.
Also have John or Josh answer the dog bag question if needed.
Yeah, I was just going to mention we have dog bags. John can attest to this, but we have dog bags at our both Tacoma sites, and people use them, and we highly encourage people to use them, and I think they're very good about it. Is that right, John?
Yes, they are.
And I see Ty nodding with deep experience. All right, thanks, y'all.
Ty, did you want to speak about that?
No more than what you said. We are more than proud of our clients because they care about their pets just as much as we care about our kids. So you always see them walking behind them, scooping them up, cleaning them up. They take them, get their dogs and cats maintenance. So I don't think that's going to be a concern, community. So yeah, they're more than happy, and they do it all the time as far as cleaning up behind the pets.
Thanks, Ty. Appreciate Appreciate that.
I wanted to add to something really quick, just since we were talking about pets, that we at all of our tiny house village sites, we allow people to come in with their pets. And the reality is that a lot of shelters, they don't allow that. And we believe in allowing, people to come in as couples, if there's several villages that serve families. And a lot of shelters don't allow that. So that's one of the ways that the tiny house villages work, is they eliminate a lot of those, barriers for people to get into shelter because they're in a couple, because they have a pet. We want to keep families, and we believe that pets are part of families, so we want to keep those them together in the villages. So that's why we have pets in the villages.
Cool, thanks. Josh, another question for your team. Is there a place, this person asked, where we can read the code of conduct?
Yeah, we can send a copy of that. I think that's, I don't know, I think that's posted somewhere, but we can absolutely send that. That's available for the public to see.
Yeah, it's also posted to our website at cityofTacoma.org/authorized encampments underneath any of our operating shelters.
Cool. Thank you so much. If someone from NCS could put that, oh, haha, someone read my mind and put it in the chat already. Thanks, Kristen. All right, next question. These two are connected. So are we moving people from the 60th site is one question. And then is the 6th and Orchard site closing is a question.
We will be
yes and no. Oh.
We will be moving folks who are located at 60th and McKinley to this site at South 69th and Proctor, very similar to when we made the transition from 8th and MLK over to East 60th and McKinley. Same kind of process. And then 602 North Orchard, 6th and Orchard site, it will be in operation through July of 2023.
Thank you. Next question. If a possible TEMS resident has a car, will there be parking available for them on site?
Yes, I'm almost wondering if Matthew wouldn't mind sharing the diagram of the site again, and we can demonstrate where the parking will
Oh, that'd be great. So give us a second and we will throw on that. Maybe while Matthew is doing that, why don't I ask another question? Oh, never mind, it is popping up. All right, Allison, can you talk out loud what we're seeing?
I absolutely can. So if you see up at the top, right underneath proposed site design, it says South 69th Street. And underneath there, staff has designated out parking spaces to include an ADA parking stall. So we will be marking those off on the street.
Thank you. Question for Josh's team. Why are we drug testing people for housing? Cannabis is legal in Washington.
I'm going to give that one to John.
Yeah, so we don't test anybody when coming into the tiny house village. So there's no drug testing going on at any of the villages.
All right. Oh, John, can you speak to vaccinations?
Yes. So again, we cannot force any of the villagers to get the COVID vaccination, but we have had multiple villagers get the COVID vaccination, and we've worked very closely with the city and had people come to give the vaccination to the villagers. But again, we can't force anybody, but we have had a good amount of our villagers getting vaccinated and also still doing the 6 foot distance, also wearing a mask, and just make sure that we are still following the guidelines to protect the village and the staff, from spreading it.
Yeah, can I just add to that? We want to, ideally we want everybody to get vaccinated, right? But people have the willpower. They need to decide if they are interested in doing that. Our staff and John's helping with leading this, and several other people are leading an effort to try to encourage residents, try to get out information if they're hearing false information, help dispel that. A lot of people just have various concerns about they might be not trust the government. They might be just hearing a lot of false information out there. So what we're trying to do right now is we're using kind of printed materials, and also in the community meetings and just our one-on-one conversations with the residents We're just talking with people because we're now past kind of the stage where everybody who wanted to get vaccinated got vaccinated. Now we're kind of in this long, slog of trying to encourage the rest to consider doing that. And then just, let it. And then the other thing is that we're looking at bringing trusted messengers, because that's a lot of times what it is. If somebody hears from somebody that's a friend of the village about the vaccination, that's helpful. And then it's like, what's the vision for the future? Like we can get to a point where we can start easing up on some of those COVID restrictions if we get to a certain percentage of people that are vaccinated. So we're trying to basically communicate that vision and hope that people come along. But yeah, like John said, they can decide if they want to do that or not, and we are, we're encouraging them and trying to make it easy for them. So.
Thank you so much. And I saw that the representative of South Tacoma Neighborhood Council gave permission to contact them, but instead, I'm going to ask, would you send those emails to Tacoma staff and to Josh so they get you direct answers? All right, I'm going to read 3 comments. Haven't done a comment in a while. First comment, as these are not residents of South Tacoma, these are individuals from all over Pierce County. It seems disingenuous to say these are your neighbors. Second comment, consider using 2x4x12 lumber instead of standard 8-foot studs. You could put in a partial floor / ceiling and create a loft for a child. I suspect there are homeless families. And our last comment is a little longer. This person says, hi, I live on South Proctor Street, and I would love to express support for micro-shelters on 69th and Proctor. The unhoused desperately need safe, secure places to live with doors that lock, with access to public transit and resources. They need somewhere to go within city limits, and there are community members and organizations here who have the capacity to care for them, and the location for these micro shelters is a great start. I'm delighted to see that the city is moving forward in a positive way on this issue. My question and there's a question. How much positive impact do you think these shelters will have for the unhoused and the surrounding community? How optimistic do you feel about the program's ability to serve the community? So I'll have you start there, Allison.
I'm actually just going to clarify one thing in the previous comment about sheltering families, and this site won't serve families, it will serve individuals and couples over 18, but our micro shelter site on 6th and Orchard does serve families, as well as there's the Adams Family Shelter, and our Bethlehem Baptist shelter serves families as well. So just want to make that clear. I don't want to confuse the populations. And then Mayor Woodard shared at the opening of her remarks some of the positive impact that the existing locations have had on their community. And in fact, one of my favorites is to share that senior living facility next to 602 North Orchard that really had concerns about the safety of their community, the safety of themselves, and really has come to embrace that location, and actually has employed a resident out of that location as well there at the senior center. So, I mean, I think for the immediate community, a lot of positive impact. And I think for us overall as a community, in terms of needing to provide shelter for residents, this does offer us the opportunity to expand our shelter units by 20 and provide some additional capacity to address those individuals in encampments. I think overall, provides us a positive impact as well. And I don't know if any of the Lehigh staff also want to make comment about kind of the impact that they've seen from their various village locations.
Sure. Ty, did you want to share something about that?
Yeah, and we were speaking on like the community, right?
Yeah, like the positive impact that the village has had for the residents.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna start off with saying that I think that this new community that the this new village is coming into. First of all, excuse me, I got braces, and also words that with R in the middle, I kind of stumble over them. So y'all excuse me, and I don't mind repeating myself, but I just think that the neighbors in this community are going to be more than I think satisfied with what this community is going to bring, because I haven't noticed any. I mean, you know, you got a couple of people that has questions, but I hadn't noticed anyone that has been uncomfortable with the village being there. And also, I think that, you know, I heard a mention of the kids right earlier. I think that these kids are going to learn, you know, how to lend a hand to their community, with this community being there, because once the community gets there, I think that the neighbors are going to find that these are human beings that, you know, that just had a little bad luck, you know, and they have their own way of coping. But once they get supported, like the way that we as case managers and my whole case manager cohort supports, they will blend into the community. You know, you would probably have a hard time knowing that they were a part of the tiny villages if they weren't standing in front of them. So I'm saying that to say that there's no doubt in my mind that you all will be more than comfortable, that they will become an asset to the neighborhood. And I think that you're going to end up wanting to lend a hand to them.
Yeah, and I also just want to add to that. Thank you for that, Ty. I just want to add to that, that if you're interested in being a part of, you know, supporting the village, you know, really just engaging as a community, as a neighbor, as a business, as a school, as a provider in the neighborhood, please, you know, apply for the CAC. You're a neighborhood stakeholder, and we want to hear from you. We want your voice on there, and that's really a chance to weigh in, to be a part of the village's success, and also hold us accountable and ask the questions and raise the concerns. You know, if you're seeing that things aren't, you know, moving fast enough for getting somebody into housing, or, you know, or there's a concern in the neighborhood. I mean, those are things that we want to hear. So we really value the community's input, and that's a good way to be involved in that.
Thanks so much. Hey, there's a question I get to answer. So this person says, I don't like that you are not having live comments during this meeting because some do not have email. And I totally understand that. Just so folks are aware, everything that you turn in at tonight's meeting is all this content. Even if we can't answer your question live, it's going to go to City of Tacoma staff, and every question will be responded to in the document that they're creating after. And if you are in particular just preferring a live comment, you can always come to a city council meeting on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of the month, and please share your thoughts. I'm always at those meetings. If Allison or someone from her team doesn't happen to be there, I'll personally make sure they get to them. So thanks, everybody. All right. Next one. Okay. Allison, this might need an explanation of a definition. So they mentioned safe parking network sites. So will you explain what those are after the question? So what is the capacity and percent filled of safe parking network sites for overflow from shelters and TEMS?
Parking network sites, Penny, are it's a pilot program that the Coalition to End Homelessness here in Tacoma Pierce County Coalition to End Homelessness is doing with a variety of partners to offer a location for individuals who prefer to live in their vehicle to safely park and have access to hygiene services and things like that. Because it is a program of the coalition, I am not certain what their percent filled or their overall capacity is. So I will have to take that question and we will have to follow up. I think we can also put contact information for the Safe Parking Network into the chat to make sure folks get that.
Great. And if that person gives me permission, I can pass on their name to you as well. So if that was your question, let me know if that's all right. This is a question that someone emailed in, so probably from one of our phone call folks. They say, your own research proved that having smaller sites around the city was better than putting them in one large location. If it's better for everyone involved, why can't we provide smaller sites around the city if we have access to so many spaces?
Okay, there are a couple of logistical pieces with that, right? There's kind of a balance between the number of folks we can serve on any individual location and the type of services we need to bring and how much investment that is. So that's one of the pieces that we take take into consideration. And then the other piece is actually the suitability of the property to do what we need to do, right? In terms of kind of what the site actually looks like. Several of the sites we reviewed are heavily treed, right? Or have some kind of steep slope or other topography that doesn't make them a viable location for a smaller shelter site. But that is why we went down to 7,500 square feet to really look at, were there locations where we could offer kind of that small, really kind of 10 to 20 person location. And so far we haven't been able to identify something that could accommodate that reasonably.
Thanks. We only have 5-10 minutes left. Can we, let's see how many questions we can get through. If we can have shorter answers, awesome. 2 questions are related to drug use. Is illegal drug use allowed? And I'll just throw this to Josh. And then next question is background checks, but no drug testing. We already have an issue with drugs in this community. What's going to stop villagers or dealers outside of the village from not being able to make this problem worse?
John, you want to answer that? About the drug and alcohol?
Yes, so we don't do any drug tests, but again, going through the code of conduct in their states, no drugs or alcohol are allowed. The staff, the case managers, the organizers, SPM do pay attention to individuals and their body language. And if anybody does come on the premises that seems like they're under the influence, we do go back to the code of conduct. The next part of that, with having the drug dealers out front, we do work very closely with the Tacoma police. There is no loitering at the village. Anybody that's at the village, that means they are either work for Lehigh, work for the city of Tacoma, or they're a villager there. We do not have any loitering going around at any of our villages because we know that attracts negativity. And the next thing is that we want to be a good neighbor to wherever we have our villages at. And sorry to speed through, but I'm trying to keep it short. And
you're perfect. That's what we need. John, I'll give the next one to you. Will there be a curfew, and how long do residents stay?
So depending on, there will be a curfew, but it also depends on what the villager has at the time. You know, it all depends. Are they coming with their social? Are they coming with their ID? Or, you know, do they have an income? What are they looking for? So we look for a resident to stay between 3 to 6 months. Again, that could vary less or more, just depending on what that villager comes with and how much help they need to get them back on their feet.
Thank you. And just so folks know, we've had over 100 questions today. We've gotten to about 30 of them. So I'm sorry for all the ones we haven't gotten to, but they will be in that frequently asked questions document. So please bookmark the site and check those. This is a really nice comment. This person says, thank you for taking the time to answer our questions. As a mom and community member, I'm very concerned about the safety of our area. I'm looking forward to this turning out the way you've presented it. If it does, I will welcome it in my area. So thanks for that. A couple questions in here, Allison, about property value. If we're addressing those concerns, if the city's doing anything to mitigate.
Haven't seen a decrease in property values for our other shelter locations and for the properties located around those. So, but if somebody feels like they need to make a claim to the city, there is a process for doing that. And that information is included in all of our FAQ documents on our website. So likely will be included in this one as well.
Thank you. And to the person who asked if we will get them information, the answer is yes. So if people want to request anything, please throw that in the Q&A in our last couple minutes. Next question is for Josh's team. Will there be classes / life skills taught to villagers to promote willingness to exit? And I have Ty, will you answer it since you're nodding like that?
Oh man, you excited me with that question, neighbor, because we get highly excited, and I'm speaking of the Lehigh staff and my cohort of case managers. We like Erica said, we offer wraparound services, and they start with life skill classes or any other classes. We believe in our residents' right to self-determination. So whatever route they want to go, we support that route. And if it calls for classes or boots, shoestrings, we make it happen for them. So yes, indeed.
Thank you. Erica, did you have anything to add? This is your realm too.
No, just wanted to say that we set that tone from the beginning. We let them know this is temporary. Get comfortable, but don't get too comfortable, and make sure that from the beginning that we're trying to move you forward. So this is definitely the norm for the villages. And when he said 3 to 6 months, that's been my experience the whole time. As a case manager, yeah, it was 3 to 6 months every single time. I moved about, I think it was in my 8 months, 13 were moved. And we've continued to move people. My 8 months as a case manager, and that was astounding. In other programs, it takes a year to 3 years to get housing through the coordinated entry program, because we're competing against every other person in the greater Seattle metropolitan area. But the wonderful thing with Lehigh is we have internal housing to offer. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we get to see that light.
Thanks, Erica. I appreciate that. John, will there be more than one staff member at night? Other TEMS sites have only one employee per 65 residents.
No, we will be adding more additional staff, which is great that the city has allowed us to do that, because we know we're going to be dealing with a lot more villagers and we will need a lot more staff. So we will be adding extra staff on all the shifts.
Okay, 2 more quick ones. Do villagers get bus passes?
Yes, and I know Ty can answer that, but yes, the villagers do get bus passes.
Okay, and then will there be computers that villagers can use for job searches?
We do have some that they can use, yes.
Could people donate more?
Yes, of course. We will never say no to any donation. So yes, please, yes.
All right, love it. Let's throw donation information back in the chat too, might as well. Okay, let me see what our last question can be. Allison, can you speak to, there's some questions in here about costs, like costs from taxpayers, essentially, so what the city's paying.
Sure, absolutely, Kenny. So some of that is dependent on how much it takes us to develop the site. In other locations, it's generally taken us about $300,000 to $500,000 to develop the site. And then Lehigh's contract generally runs us between $650,000 to $800,000 for a year. So we are generally looking at about 1.2, 1.32 for the first year of operation, and then ongoing is between that $650,000 and $800,000 cost. The cost of this location will be covered both by emergency shelter grant COVID relief funds, as well as, or emergency solutions grant, excuse me, as well as mental health substance use disorder revenue.
Thank you. And I think we have time for one more. Allison, will you speak to, this question says, I lost it, but I'll paraphrase. How are people chosen for this opportunity?
Yeah, generally, and I can ask also Josh or John to touch on this as well, but generally referrals are made directly from our homeless outreach team. So they're working with folks in encampments and getting them into the micro-shelter locations. And then Lehigh also has partnerships with other area nonprofits to help and make transitions for folks and clients who may need that help as well. And I'm seeing nods, so I don't think.
Yeah,
that was good. Yeah.
Yep.
No need. That was great.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you so much to the 50 people we have here, the 100 questions that we got. And Allison, can you just give us some closing thoughts, and if anyone else needs to speak as well? Oh, and your sound went out.
Oh man, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just have to stay close. Sorry. So thank you again to everyone for joining us this evening. Just want to remind folks that this session was recorded and we will be posting it to our website. So that will be available for folks to view later. All of your questions will be answered, compiled and answered in a document that generally takes us about a week and a half to turn around from one of these events. And then we also post all of the community comments as well. So the raw information goes in as well to our website. So want to remind folks, if you have a question that you don't feel like got answered, or you feel like later it comes up for you, shelters@cityoftacoma.org, or you may call 253-591-5000 and ask them to direct you to a staff member who can speak with you about the micro-shelter location. Again, I want to thank Kenny for moderating this evening, Lehigh staff for being here and helping us answer all the questions, my dedicated colleagues in neighborhood and community services, and of course, Mayor Woodard for joining us this evening. Thank you. And thank you to the community for taking your time this evening on this very nice and sunny day. Thank you.
Thanks, Lehigh. I really appreciate having y'all here. Thanks, Ronnie. If anyone wants to join the Ronnie fan club, please email me. My email's in the chat.
I'm already one of his biggest fans.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to give just a moment if people need to get any content from the chat, copy and paste anything from there. We'll close the room in about 1 minute. Thank you, everybody. Lehigh folks, you're welcome to log off and rest up. Thanks, everybody.
All right, everybody take care and be safe.
Thanks, Ty. And like I said, we'll get all your questions to folks. Oh, hi, Mayor.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mayor.
Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, Allison.
Kenny, Allison, great job again.
Oh, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, see you guys
Bye.
later.
Bye.
Bye.
We'll give folks about 30 more seconds. If there's any content you need to copy from the chat. We got all your questions. We're going to include them all in the frequently asked questions. Oh, thank you to the people who are saying thank you. And people are putting in some last minute comments. I'll make sure those get to NCS, City of Tacoma staff. All right, thank you so much. I'm going to close the meeting. Oh, the link, I saw your question. How can we see the link to this? It should be in the chat. I'm going to put it in there again so it's at the most recent chat item. I'll give you, if you go to the site that I'm putting in the chat again, that's where everything that we update, the video, the information will be in cityofTacoma.org/authorized authorized encampments. It'll of course take us some time to answer all those questions. We have 40 more to get to, but please check that occasionally. And if you're not seeing it or have questions, just email any of us. All right, thank you, everybody. Talk to you later.